all the styles, everything got picked up. Effectively, bold is here. Lots of things got preserved. And now the main part of the exercise is somehow to bring the grid of these products that are stored in Content Hub 1. So how do I do that? I need to place the component somewhere here that contains that. In order to do that, I go to components interface, and that's the most important part of the exercise we're doing today. So what you see here is XM apps. This is your main interface working with XM Cloud. It has sites interface. It has dashboard, which is a kind of launchpad in the old world of XP days. Also, the settings you have here for currently it's for site identifier. So I go to launchpad or dashboard. I go to components. Of course, you can go to components.sitecore cloud directly by pasting the URL. So this is the main interface for components. Once again, I want to pay your attention to early access label. Things might have changed and will likely get changed. There's lots of improvements coming with time. There's lots of improvement came here already. A couple of them I want to mention is that first of all, the UI improvements being like UI was revoked entirely. UX as well. It now got support for external React components. The biggest change I will be featuring today is frontend as a service, which requires updated version of GSS SDK, at least 21.2. For those who are developers, you might get upgraded your code to benefit from it. And the biggest change in the way we build components, I would call it the grid. But let me show you all that in action. So first of all, I will add collection. So collection is just a logical grouping for your components so that you can easily navigate them from the Pages app. So I can open and collapse, expand the collection from here. So I will create a new collection. I will call it, obviously, whiskey. Let's save it. So let's add a first component into it. I call it whiskey collection. Let's save it and start edit. So this is your canvas where you build everything. This is the new improvement. You now operate in terms of grid. Grid contains 12 columns, similar to the rest of the other grids. I am editing the default version, but you may add as many versions as you want. You may use versions for responsibility, but let me show you how it all works in action. So let me first allocate a block here. I will add an element to this block. It will be a card. We will be operate with the cards. I want to add elements into cards. So probably let it be a heading. I will add a heading first, and I will do the rest of elements just in a minute. But I want to show you how the components is wired to external data. So here you may see data sources tab, and that's where you can plug the external data sources. In the settings, you will be able to provide a connection to Content Hub 1. It requires API key, and I'll show you what is API key in a minute. Once you are in Content Hub 1, you have this integration tab, and you get API key section. So you use this section to create API key, make sure you select delivery, give it a meaningful name, and copy the key itself. So why do you need this key? This key is required for any system, any caller, and application that is going to pull the content from your Content Hub 1. So since Content Hub 1 is publishing to Experience Edge, with Experience Edge, we have an interesting tool. It's called GraphQL IDE. So I'll show you how this GraphQL IDE operates to get the content and test the content. So this is my endpoint in first place. So this is endpoint of my experience edge. This is a query which basically pulls all the content from this API endpoint. With these two, basically everyone could pull the data. That's why we have a GraphQL token to protect your API from just everyone accessing it freely. So only those who know the token, which we just created from this interface, would be able to get it. So we create token, we make sure we copy the token, we pass it as a variable within HTTP headers. So clicking here, it makes request to my experience edge endpoint, and you see it immediately returns the collection of all these whiskeys with images, with videos where applicable. Not all of them have video. This one has. So that's the output we want to use. Basically, the first thing I can do, I can copy this output, go to the components interface, the reason I showed you Content Hub 1 integration here, if you provide API key, you will be able to automate integration with Content Hub 1 and do what I'm doing now manually. You will be able to do that in a semi-automatic mode. But I want to show how it all manually works under the hood. So I go to data sources. Let me create a new data source. I am presented with three options. I can paste JSON. Remember, I just copied the output of this endpoint. So I can just paste it here, and it immediately shows me the structure of my JSON output. That's obviously not what I want to do, because I want to make a live data source so that if the content gets modified, that's being reflected. In order to do so, I copy the query from here. Let me select GraphQL because we operate against GraphQL. I paste the query. Then I obviously go and copy endpoint. That's where we pull the content from. And once again, I need to get this token. So I copy it from here, go to components, and I will provide a new header. So I need to press enter so that it actually applies to. All right. So with that in mind, I can now fetch this URL with this token, with the query I provided. And you see I'm getting the same result because that's basically the same output. This is the structure of the output from that endpoint. I give it a meaningful name. I'll call it whiskey action and save it. Let's go back to the components editor. So that's my component, halfway done. So what I do, I want to map this component to the blog, and I want it to be to operate in a kind of repeatable manner. So first of all, I want to select a block. Please pay attention to this component. This is called breadcrumb. So it works similar as a breadcrumb in Experience Editor. So currently I am selecting cart, and I have the block upper the hierarchy. It shows me that I'm in a block. Then upper the hierarchy is the whole selection with this grid. And you go deeper and deeper. Like if I go to heading, it will be under the cart. Like I select cart, and then that's my heading. So to start with, I want to select the block. I go to layout and alignment. I want to make 3 columns of it so that it shows up exactly in the same style. Like here, there are 3 columns, and I'm doing the 3 columns here as well. I also make sure to allow wrapping to follow up the same pattern as it's done here. And that's it. Now I want to navigate to the card. And with card, I want to map the card to the collection so that the cards become repeatable. Now you see my GraphQL endpoint returns 10 items. All 10 items are showed here in 3 columns, exactly as I want it to be. Pretty awesome, isn't it? Let me then add a few other parts of the card. So I want to add the image. So let it be under the heading. There will be image. I also want to add the paragraph for description. I place it here, make sure to place it at the end of the card, not within the image itself. This prompt is very helpful in my opinion because it allows you to place elements exactly where you want them to be. And one more thing I probably would need is a link, because I want to make a link to the video where applicable. So I'll call it watch video. And here we go. So let's map our elements. So I have heading elements here. And since the card is mapped to collection of the card, I go to text and I want to map it to vendor so that it immediately picks up the vendors of each of the whiskey I have and replaces the placeholder value with it. I do the same for the description. I map it to the description. I don't like this long copy, so I want to make it a little bit short. How do I do that? I select a paragraph. I go to like settings, and I have line limit here, which I find quite helpful. Also, I can center, justify text. I'll probably end up with justifying it, and I'm okay to go. Now, a little bit more difficult, because as you might remember from my Content Hub part, images are passed as the collection, so they are not passed on their own, so I cannot directly map this block to an image. I need to work with the collection. So first of all, I map here the collection to the picture results. And then within the picture results, I already map the source of that image. I map it to the specific URL. And you see only the relevant field is available to me here. So it allows me, it prompts me actually, it allows me to pick up the right thing within the right collection. So as soon as I do that, the images get pulled and they are actually correct one. So the same exercise I will be doing with the link. I need to pick up link here. So what I'll do is I go to link here, select it, make sure it's selected, map it to this time video collection. And the link itself, I map to the URL of the video stream, which I provide as an image. Once again, it's not recommended setting, but I'll do that for the sake of experiment. And so far, so good. Now, look at that. I have this component with all the data pulled from Content Hub 1, and it looks nicely. I'll probably will add a little bit more of padding between the elements. So to do so, I will navigate up the breadcrumb. I will go to the block, and I have meaningful pattern interface here. I'll do, yeah, let it be 8 here, 20 here. Yeah, I'm generally okay with these spacings. Maybe this was better. So far, so good. So once the element is there, I'm now ready to stage it and then to publish. So you may want to ask what the difference between staging and publishing. So the difference is that once you stage the component, it becomes visible here within the pages interface. but once you publish the component, it goes to the experience edge and it comes to the general availability outside of your editing experience. So let me see. Okay, everything is published here, draft stage published. We are good to go with this component. So let's go back to the pages interface. I don't need to save anything here because everything is automatically saved. All I need to do is I refresh the page. The only reason I do it to get this new collection of components so that my whiskey collection appears here and I have this component. For some reason it didn't update, but I'm generally okay with it. Okay, let it be container. So once I add it to container, it shows me my element. I would probably add it to the wider. The scope. Anyway, let's keep it as is within a container with the rest of the content. We're okay with padding. The basic idea I want to demonstrate you that the grid is here and the content is pulled from it. So what I can do from here is I can publish it. I will publish everything. At this stage, I want to ask you to be a little bit forgiving me for the styling and for all the things like paddings, because again, we are very short of time. We have only a few minutes left before the question section, and I want to show you the bigger part of it. So that components and pages allows you control of the styling of your elements at a certain degree. So lots of things you will be able to do here, but of course it's not full style control. So in order to make it pixel perfect, I want to publish this whole page to experience edge, and which I've done, and I want to publish the site itself to the rendering host. So let's go back to the, I think deploy app is the right place here. We go to the production environment. We see my website. I recently created this Coach website, and it suggests me to set up hosting. What that means is actually XM Cloud comes with the built-in integration for Vercel. And just from this interface, it allows me to set up a hosting so that it all comes there. But first, I want to publish the whole content to the experience edge. So it will publish lots of items, but remember that it publishes the whole the website. It's everything that we have scaffolded within the first stage. So everything under this item of Scotch site collection, everything on the media library, all the templates. So lots of things get published to Experience Edge now, relevant to the site to make it possible run in the rendering host. But let us set up the Vercel project first. So I give it a name, and I like the automatic prompt, which takes my project name, then it takes my environment name, and then it takes my site name. So basically the whole line of hierarchy. Then it asks me for my GitHub account. I already have linked my GitHub account, but if you don't, it also will let you do that with the Vercel interface. The reason to it is that I have the repository which are deployed to this production environment, and there's also a source for the rendering host which gets published there as well. So I need to point this here. Let's save it and see how it goes. So this will be the URL of the Vercel as soon as everything gets published. So with that in mind, while publishing goes there, I come back to you asking, is there any questions? Are there any questions available so far?
Yeah, there are quite a lot actually in the chat, so you can take a look at the chat.
I'll go answering some of them, and we are quite short with time. So some of you who want to stay longer after the end of the hour, you're welcome to. I will be going and answering all of your questions. Oh, by the way, the publishing is done. So let me open it up. What did I miss? I think I didn't do deployment. Here. Once again, I go to my cloud. I go to up. So that's my site interface. Yeah, there was a small lag. I did do nothing. So there was small lag between it gets deployed to the Vercel. So what you see here is the URL that immediately matches the name of the deployment to Vercel. It's everything hosted under Vercel URL. So the only thing left from here, if you want to go, you can map your DNS to here, and it will be served at your client-facing domain name. But anyway, once again, please forgive me the styling of the elements. I only wanted to demonstrate you the process of how we work. Of course, this should be typically an image, clickable image that brings you to the home website. This is a navigation component with all your pages. I only have a home page. That's why you don't see this navigation component. But if I create one, it will show you a navigation component here. Things like these. Basically, you give this whole URL to your front-end developer so that they can go and adjust all the styles like that here in the DevTools and come up with the style sheet file for you to apply so that whatever you just prototyped here looks and works exactly as you want your visitors to see. And the last probably but important thing I want to show you in the last minute, all this content is pulled in live mode from the Content Hub 1. The whole magic is possible because of one component that was recently brought to XMCloud. It's called Frontend as a Service. So if I open this page in Experience Editor, let me do that. You will see all this content here as well. Clicking here, you will see this Frontend as a Service wrapper. This is the new component here. And this wrapper allows you to bring everything from external data sources. Like it allows you to bring component from components published and the actual data. So go into properties, what you will see here is my GraphQL token. So it features my GraphQL token. It also has the query. So the whole query I'm pulling the content here, it's also included. And I will just prove you in a second that it's actually live content. So let's go back to Content Hub. I go to one of the like the first one. I pick up the first one, and I give it updated, like UPD. You know that it gets updated UPD. So updated the name, I save it. Then I republish this particular element and go to my rendering host. I go to Vercel here, and I update the page. So you see, it picks up the content from the Content Hub 1. So that's why Content Hub 1 is so helpful for prototyping the data, and components is so helpful for prototyping the interface. But like XM Cloud in general, it brings lots of the new and useful features, like the pages, centralized interface for managing your content. Of course, that everything is in addition to old good content and experience editor. So everything you had before, you still have it here, but you get lots of things in addition, which are coming as a part of your XM Cloud subscription, as a part of your license. You don't need to have any license for any of these additional things, other than Vercel, of course. So with that in mind, I finish up my presentation, and let's get back to the questions from you guys. Daria, maybe you have anything to say so far?
Maybe before we go to the questions. By the way, if somebody is has to leave earlier, and I will write down all the questions, and we can for those questions that will not be answered in this video, we can also publish them on either on LinkedIn or as comments to the video when we publish it. So I think that's also something that we can do. Martin, may I ask you to pull the presentation for a moment?
Of course. Just briefly, lesson learned, but this is something I just told you already, like all these bullet points. XM Cloud brings bigger changes to our editing routine, but everything you knew so far, it still stays relevant. It only adds to it. But I've given it back to Daria.
Yeah, so just remember that this is just the first episode of a series of workshops. So next time we'll have another workshop in September, and most probably it will be about Order Cloud digital rights management. So that's something you probably haven't seen even on YouTube videos from some subject matter experts, because it hasn't been widely discussed yet. We also would be very happy if you come to Sitecore Learning Portal and take a look at XM Cloud training, because currently we have a brand new instructor-led class, and we also have the self-paced e-learning. XM Cloud certification is coming in October, and if you want to become an exam beta tester, if you are very proficient in XM Cloud, you can get your certification for just $99 instead of the usual price. So you can write us if you want to become a beta tester. So yeah, this is what you can do next after this workshop. And yeah, Martin, could you maybe go further?
Yep. Content Hub 1 also has no DIM functionality. That's the answer. It does not have DIM, but it has support for the media assets in CDN with a limit of 70 megabytes, at least that was a few months ago, which is really helpful. That's how I managed to build the video. Oh, by the way, let me show you one more thing before I close it. So coming back to this, sorry, not this, the published website. Try to find where was that. Okay, here we are. So remember, I'm up the video here. So if I take this address of the video and I open any player that is capable of playing the video stream, like VLC, for example, I paste it here, and I'm able to play the video stream that is coming directly from Content Hub 1. But again, since this is media, this is playing from Content Hub 1 Experience Edge CDN. This is how media is being organized. And it also got here. So basically, now with the components, I can also bring my own components. That's another feature which is currently under the scope. Let me show you this as well. So if I go to Experience Editor and select one of these, one. So I get this new front-end as a service section, and outside of front-end as a server wrapper, I have also bring your own component wrapper. So you will be able to register your own React components with components editor. It's actually already possible. There is documentation to it. I came across it. There is documentation. So you can register, you can bring your custom HTML, you can bring React components, like lots of other things you can do. So once again, go to documentation, read it through. You will be amazed by the new features available already out of the box with your XM Cloud subscription. Okay, so any idea what the role of the component library API key? I think that one is used under the hood for integration with front-end as a server wrapper. I might be wrong with that, so this is my guess. This is my best guess. But since you are able to integrate it in this wrapper, you will be able to integrate components beyond Sitecore products, beyond interface. So probably you can create your own wrapper for Contentful or for like whichever interface you may have. And with that in mind, you will need your API key to access it. But once again, this is my guess. Hopefully developers will answer it better. I'm not working for Sitecore, sorry guys, I don't know the internals. Shall we deploy sites to others except Vercel from XM Cloud Portal? So at the moment, XM Cloud has integration with Vercel, but that does not stop you from using other providers. You may use Netlify, and I would say Netlify is coming one of the pioneers for Jamstack powered websites. So I know that Netlify fully supports all the feature set for Next.js, and this is something that you would think first in mind when going to XM Cloud. There are also Azure static websites, but that one I don't believe has 100% coverage for all the features, unlike Netlify. Like Netlify, it has it all, edge functions, all of you may ever want. There was also something from Google. You may create your own hosting, by the way. So you may spin up a Linux-based container in your Kubernetes and create all the prerequisites with Dockerfile so that you may end up providing your own hosting for your SSG with Next.js. Why not? With the rest of infrastructure, the amount of effort will be significant. So, but Vercel is the thing that is integrated by default so far. Similar like GitHub is the only integrated source code provider. I know lots of other providers are coming, and the mostly notable, I think GitLabs will be also added, and some others. Same expected for integration. Who knows? As soon as Sitecore partners with Netlify, they might get it as well. Okay, going next. Output of components are React or web components, so you can deploy anywhere. First, let's answer. Mark, thank you very much for answering that. Say headless components, we can use rendering parameters for configuration in the pages sidebar. but this is very limited in the supported types. I saw the custom React components registered with XM Cloud components using React JSON schema form. Did you play with this? No, I still want to play with this. That's why I showed you bring your own components. And I actually wanted to invest a lot of time for integration with XM Cloud and components. How to convert GSS side XM Cloud? Which steps do you need to follow? So that was Sonalik. Sonalik, could you clarify your question, please? So you want existing GSS website to convert to XM Cloud, or convert something else into GSS site and then move it to XM Cloud?
Yeah, I want to convert the existing GSS site to the XM Cloud. So what exactly we need to follow?
If my memory serves me right, there was a documentation what you should do, or migrating existing GSS site, which were done prior to Next.js SDK, like something.
Okay.
I basically have the similar example now. I've done something with Sitecore 9.3 and GSS 16, which I want to bring to XM Cloud. So there was a piece of documentation covering how you need to wrap it with Next.js, but relatively, this is not a big scope of work for you to do. So it's nothing to compare rewriting legacy MVC content to Next.js. So it's much better. So basically your GSS site, so it's already GSS, it uses React. You only need to apply the stuff from Next.js SDK to it. Once you do that, you will be able to use it with your XM Cloud instance, or there is even better option, you can drop it into SXA so that you will immediately benefit from SXA powered features like page and partial designs, which I demonstrated. Like sitemap is very strong feature coming with this headless SXA and XM Cloud. So I would better advise going this approach.
Okay,
So that were all the questions so far. I want to thank everyone for attending my session. I tried to do all my best to fit this piece of knowledge into such a small amount of time, and the experiment went well. So looking forward.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Martin. And yeah, this session, I will post it a bit later. We will see, I think, on the YouTube channel. But you can follow the LinkedIn of Martin and of me, and then you will be up to date with all these sessions.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Great presentation.
Thank you, Serge.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.